So how can I duplicate these results? How can I 3x these results? Like you have to be a forward thinker, and it's a lot easier said than done. Like you said, it's a lot of mindset work. You have to separate yourself from the business and look at it strategically. And there's a difference between being a business owner or an entrepreneur and a CEO. And you have to step into that CEO mindset of looking things like above the business rather than being so close to it in it. And sometimes that means, outsourcing, hiring someone to look at your business for you. Other times that just means putting everything on a quick break for a couple hours, step back and take the time to really assess where you're at rather than thinking it's all on you.
Welcome back again to another episode of the Confident Mompreneur podcast, where we talk to real women from around the globe about real life difficulties and triumphs in momhood, business, relationships, health, and more. I'm your host, Kyrie, ready to give you real actionable advice to help you become the best, most confident version of you in all areas of your life. Let's get into it. Well, welcome on today, Sierra. I am so excited to have you, and I'm so grateful that you found us and you're here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, all of those good things.
Yeah, so my name is Sierra. I am a scaling coach for coaches. So, really focusing on optimizing your business, your time, and being able to take your whatever your goal is with your business, like being able to take it to the next level essentially. I'm also a mom of two little boys, and I get to spend my days with them, which is just the best thing ever. It's why I started my online business in the first place.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think that so many of us that are in like online businesses is because we want to be able to have that flexibility to like be with our kids more. So I love that you have those two little boys and what you do allows that. So you said you're a scaling coach for like other online coaches. Were you an online coach before and then moved into this, or how did that progression kind of go?
Yeah, so I actually started out as a copywriter. That was what I moved into. I have a degree in English education, so it felt like the natural shift when I wanted to start a business. And I loved the writing part, but I overwhelmed myself with the business part. Like I was working around the clock. I was doing every single thing, every hack I saw to try and find more clients. And it wasn't that I wasn't seeing success, but I felt like I needed to do more. Like I was very much of that mindset. Like there's got to be more. I need to just keep moving. And I burned out, which is just the what happens to a lot of people if they
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I really had to sit down and think, okay, like, am I going to keep doing this business thing? And if I am, I need to change something. Like something has to shift. And I figured out how I could, implement better routines and how I could create schedules for myself and how I could move forward in my business with purpose. So I actually then shifted to like productivity coaching and helping moms like manage the work life and the mom life of things, and that kind of led to scaling and not just how to manage your time and be good at it, but how to utilize your time to push yourself forward.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think your story there of like, always feeling like we need to do more, to be more, all of that. And then that leading to like burnout and physical fatigue is so real and so true. And I don't think it matters what industry you're in, or even sometimes like as a stay-at-home mom, I know stay-at-home moms that have like burned themselves out trying to do everything for their kids all the time. So it's something that a lot of us, I think, have gone through. And so I love that you are now like stepping into that space and really helping other moms, be able to kind of work through that and create those like systems and things to help them do it in a manageable way. And I love the word scale because it shows that you're not just like maintaining things and like, stepping back and just maintaining the status quo, but you're actually growing while you're kind of stepping back and not going into burnout, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you mentioned the whole like mom side of things. Like and I mean, I don't mean to speak for every mom, but I feel like moms in general, like we feel like we want to do more. Like we have a lot of weight on our shoulders to raise kids, to be something outside of our kids. And we take that pressure and it just like it drives us, which is great, but sometimes it can drive us a little too much. Not like
Drive us
in a
bonkers.
in a bad way, yeah, but like just it we need to understand like we can still make moves, we can still move forward and be mom and business owner and wife and all the roles, but we can do it without overwhelming ourselves. Like we can do it by taking smaller steps, by taking more purposeful steps.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. So when you kind of reached that point of burnout, what did it look like for you to like figure out, okay, like this isn't sustainable, this isn't working for me anymore. Like, how can I shift things to make it those for me?
Yeah, so at the time, I wish I had actually like been tracking how much I was working in a day because at the time I really didn't think about that. But I was working like every nap time, late into the night, waking up early in the morning. I would have like my kid in a wrap and be like at the computer working, and so it felt like I was working around the clock. And when I got to that point of burnout of like I need something to change, I actually had to create a like I had to create my own schedules. Like, back in like high school when you had like the planners and you had to like write down what you did for each class and each step of the way.
The
So
time block.
I yes, yeah, like the blocks, yeah. So I had to kind of create those blocks and I tried the time blocking and it was great, but then I was getting really angry. Like it's not something that a lot of people like to talk about. Like I was angry at my kid. Like I was like I need to work and I felt like I couldn't work outside of those. Like I had the blocks, I needed to work during those blocks. I'm a very like type A, like I need to be doing that during the time. And so I had these time blocks and it wasn't working. So I then created like these like flexible blocks essentially. So I would create these like sections of like 20 to 30 minutes of working time. So that was like about the time that I could sit my kid down to like play with some toys or whatever. And that would allow me to get something done in that 20 to 30 minutes. And if it happened, you know, after breakfast, or if it happened before lunch, or if it happened while they were taking a nap, it didn't matter when it happened. It was just that block of time that those activities were happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely makes sense. I definitely kind of have a similar system. I try to like keep things around the same times of day, but like especially as a mom, like my kid is in kindergarten and I could be called at like 10:30 in the morning and they say, "Oh, he's sick, like he's got to come home." Or, there are a million things that can come up and you just have to like be able to be flexible in that. And I do think that like you said, that time blocking, if you're a type A person, if it doesn't happen in that like little time period, you're so hard on yourself and like you put so much shame and like, just self-doubt on yourself for not being able to like hit that goal or that achievement or whatever. And like you said, especially as mom and women, we are so hard on ourselves and we hold it into ourselves very much. So I think it causes a lot of issues when we do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you started implementing like this flexible kind of time system in. What did that look like for you personally? Did it help with your burnout? And then like did you see any negative like things come out of it in your business from kind of being more flexible in how much time you were spending and actually spending less time total like in your business?
Yeah. So basically what that looked like for me was before I could like when I decided I was going to do these 20 to 30-minute blocks of time, I first had to figure out what I was going to put in those blocks. And that leads to, when I was working just round the clock every second I had, I was doing a lot of things that weren't directly impacting my success, weren't directly helping my business. I would spend a lot of time like scrolling through Facebook groups and like looking for, opportunities to help people or like, find clients, but I would also scroll through Facebook. Like if you're on a platform, you tend to your brain tends to train off a little bit.
You're
So
off.
yeah, exactly. And yeah. And I also found that because I was also trying to do like every every single like hack, every new trend or new thing to find more clients, I was so spread thin. And so when I created those smaller blocks, I had to figure out, okay, which of these things are like, do I enjoy doing? Do I actually want to do in my business? And which of these things are necessary for my business? And everything else could be put on hold. So things like at the time, I was trying to like I had my clients and I was trying to do a course and I was trying to, be on multiple platforms at once. And I had to realize, okay, like this isn't sustainable right now. What is bringing me the most money? That's my clients. So let's put the course on hold and let's put my time and my energy into serving more clients, into finding more. At the time, it was copywriting clients. And so I sat down and mapped out what I would do in each of those blocks. It actually allowed me to get to a point where I was only working like 4 hours a day, which going from like working every hour and every second that I could to only 4 hours, I thought that it would be, like you said, like it would have a negative effect on my business. It would have some type of repercussion where I wasn't being able to serve as many clients. And there is some truth to that because we only have so much time in a day. And if I'm saying, hey, I'm only going to work 4 hours a day or 20 hours a week, then yes, if it takes me, an hour to write a blog post for a client, then I'm actually capped. I can only technically do 20 posts at a time because that would max out my 4 hours. And
Sorry, that was so weird. It just bounced me out for some reason. That was weird.
you're good. Should I back up a little bit further or just kind of like before it
Just
ended?
right before it ended would be great. Sorry.
Okay, perfect. No, you're fine. I remember where I was. So I
You were talking about having max time because of like you could only
yes.
spend an hour on a post, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So because I could max out, like it would get to a point where I could only serve, like I could only write 20 posts because I had 20 hours to work if I was working 4 hours a day. And in that sense, you can cap yourself. But for me, I realized at this point in time where I'm still in a growth, I wasn't quite in the scaling stage yet. That was fine. It was fine for me to just focus on serving clients. And then when I did get to the scaling phase, then I needed to have a plan in place. I needed to figure out, okay, if I'm going to cap myself out in time, then where can I hire support? Where can I automate income instead of, and move away from one-on-one services to one-to-many or to DIY services.
Mm-hmm. I think those are all like super good tips. Like recognizing where you're at and like adjusting to that in some way, even if that means like being able to hire on help or do other things so that you can expand if that's what you're looking to do, or recognizing where you're at and being okay with like being where you're at for a little bit until you're in a place where you can be in that expansion phase. Um, I also love that you talk about give me it just 1 second. I just went blank. Uh, what was I gonna say? What was the first thing that you talked about in there?
Creating those, like, I had to figure out what I was going to put in those 20 to 30 minute increments of time.
That's what it was. Letting go of the small things. Yes, I think that's so important because especially as business owners and even as moms, I think we get caught up in the small minutia of things instead of recognizing the bigger things that are actually moving the needle. So I love that you talk about thinking about like, okay, what is actually going to impact the business? What are the things that I actually enjoy doing so I don't get caught up doing a million things that I hate and then end up hating my business, and what can I handle right now? I think those are three really important questions that we need to ask ourselves about our business so that we can get into that scaling and growth phase.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where, the other thing that I really like to use are IPAs and KPIs. So IPAs are your income producing activities. What are the things that are going to move yourself forward? And then the KPIs are your key performance indicators. So how can you measure your success and make sure that you are focusing on the right areas?
So let's dig into that because I think those are great things. I feel like sometimes as business women, we get too busy with, like the actual service or things that we're providing that we forget the actual business components of things, or we don't have the training on the business components of things. So how do we track like our business activities and what is actually moving the needle and finding those KPIs?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, KPIs are your key performance indicators. So, these are the metrics that you can use to essentially reverse engineer your goals. So, for example, if you knew that you wanted to sign 3 clients this month, you could figure out how many sales calls that would take, how many discovery calls you have to get on the sales calls, how many freebie downloads or conversations or new accounts you'd have to reach out to just sign a single client. And then you'd multiply that by 3 and you know exactly every single day how many people you need to reach out to. You would know how many sales calls you need to get on at the end of the day. And granted, like that's not an exact, things are flexible and sometimes it might take 5 sales calls instead of 3 sales calls. Sometimes it might take one, but it gives you a better estimation so that way you know every day what to be focusing on. And it's all about bringing that purpose, right? So if you can track it, if you can mathematically write out exactly how you can get the success that you want, it's going to work in your favor.
Yeah. So my day job is in insurance. And so when I started out as a insurance producer, they basically gave us the exact like KPIs that we would need to hit in order to be successful as an insurance agent. So they would say like you need to make 35 calls a day. Out of those 35, we expect you to actually reach like 10 of those people. We expect you to set about 5 appointments. And out of those 5 appointments, you'll get one new client. So they kind of gave you those like ahead of time, which was really nice because then it was like, okay, if I make 35 calls today, if I get 5 new people on my calendar, like I can expect to make XYZ money. Um, so it's really nice when people just hand it to you. But if you're running your own business, do you do like a spreadsheet where you're like, okay, like this is how many people I've talked to today, this is how many appointments I held? What does that typically look like?
Yeah. So if you've never tracked your KPIs before, it's first of all, you're going to have to gather some data, right? So ideally, like the more data you can gather, the better. But at least start tracking these things for about a month and figure out, okay, like how am I doing? Write down, either use like a lead tracker if you're using one of those to track how many conversations you have. But on top of that, write down the number, write down how many freebie downloads you have, write down how many ad clicks you have, like whatever metrics you want to track. And then and yeah. And then once you have those numbers, then you can kind of create like like it might not be like an exact KPI yet, but you can get like at least an idea and then keep tracking. Like once you have the numbers, like keep tracking for another month and another month. And every month you're going to realize like you are getting better at this, which is like a huge like boost of self-esteem, and 2, you're going to get a more refined, a more accurate number as you continue to sign those clients, and that's just going to make your estimations for the next month even better.
Yeah. Well, and it's definitely good too. I think as you track it over time, you'll see like some of the regular patterns in the business too. So there are a lot of like seasonal businesses out there. Like if you have like a photography business, typically it's going to be less busy in the winter than it is in the summer. And it can kind of like help you gauge those seasonalities and help you plan ahead, financially and other things as well, which is really nice. And the other thing I think it shows you, like we were talking about before, is like the connections between certain activities and what you receive from it. So like if you end up putting an ad out on like Facebook, it gives you some of those like ROI and KPI information back just through the ad platform. And you can actually see like, okay, is this actually generating any views? Is this actually generating any revenue? If not, I'm not going to put more money towards that type of an ad or whatever. And it can allow you to like shift the way that you're doing things.
Absolutely. And you can also look at it from the time perspective as well. So there's like that ads and the money spent type of thing. There's also the, okay, is this action that I'm doing actually bringing me more clients? Is it allowing me to have more conversations? And tracking your KPIs allows you to figure out where in your funnel you're losing the most people. And when you can find that dip, then you can fix it. I mean, the whole goal is to create as little of a dip as possible from the people, like when they first interact with you, to them purchasing a service or a product from you.
Yeah. So I think in theory, this all sounds great, right? But when we actually start doing it, and especially if we're brand new to like tracking something like this, I feel like it can be really disheartening to see like you said, those kind of big drops between our initial like meet with a potential customer client and then actually getting them to be a paying customer client. How do we work through like the mental blocks that come with seeing those numbers? Because I know for me, I am not a numbers person. I hate looking at my bank account. I hate looking at like the numbers on like my Instagram. I hate it. So how can we work through those mental blocks?
Yeah. So, and this is where, as a business owner, you really have to be a problem solver. You have to realize that just because there's a dip in your numbers doesn't mean that you are sorry, doesn't mean that you are doing something wrong. It's just, it's showing that there is something that you can improve on. So kind of shifting your mindset from, oh, like I'm failing, or I'm not doing this enough, I'm not doing this the right way, and shifting it to, okay, like how can I improve it? I signed one client last month. That is incredible. How can I
It is again.
okay. So how can I duplicate these results? How can I 3x these results? Like you have to be a forward thinker, and it's a lot easier said than done. Like you said, it's a lot of mindset work. You have to separate yourself from the business and look at it strategically. And that is where you, something that I teach a lot is there's a difference between being a business owner or an entrepreneur and a CEO. And you have to step into that CEO mindset of looking things like above the business rather than being so close to it in it. And sometimes that means, outsourcing, hiring someone to look at your business for you. Other times that just means putting everything on a quick break for a couple hours, step back and take the time to really assess where you're at rather than thinking it's all on you.
Yeah. Well, something that somebody told me once that has really stuck with me is like, stop taking it personally. It's business, it's not personal. And sometimes like we said, that's really hard to do, but to be able to look at it from that problem solving standpoint is super important. And I actually had another person that was on here that talked about, that shift from an entrepreneur to a CEO. And especially when you're like hiring other people to bring on and things, you just like have to make that mentality shift. And they brought up doing like basically a CEO day a month where they're going in and doing these types of things, and so that they can be kind of in that like above the business space like you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Having those CEO days, like you said, even if it's just like once a month, taking that time to separate yourself is going to be crucial.
Yeah. So what we also talked a little bit about some of the like systems or processes that we can get in place that can also help us as we're making these shifts into more growth and like sustainability in our businesses. What are some of the systems you suggest putting in place, or does it totally depend on what type of business you're in?
Yeah. So as far as like the systems, I think it's going to be very much dependent on your personal, um, like what works for you. Like, for example, if you want to do like a Trello versus like a Dubsado, like that type of thing. However, when it comes to like the types of automations you should have, there should be some type of funnel. So some type of from point A when they first are introduced to you to making the sale, there should be some type of funnel in place, and you should have that for every single one of your offers. Ideally, that's as automated as possible. So it's not that you have to reach out to them, then you have to direct the conversation, and you have to send them the link. Have it be automated so it's running in the background.
Mm-hmm.
The other type of system that you should really have is something to keep everything organized. So even if that's just a Google spreadsheet and that's how your mind works and you like having it all in front of you, that's just fine. But have some place to keep track of everything that's going on. Write down what you want to accomplish this week, next week, and just kind of keep that organized, especially when you start bringing on team members. You need to have a place of contact, somewhere where everything is coming together.
Mm-hmm. For me, I have learned so I recently, like in December, released a Confident Woman daily journal that I created and used. And one of the pages in there is that I set up a weekly schedule where it kind of like has those like timey block things in there like we were talking about, but it also has like a daily list of priorities of things to do. That has been like super immense in helping me like remain focused on the big things that I need to do. And then the other thing is like calendar organization is huge for me. My ADHD brain, if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening. So
Yeah.
I know for me, like just with the way that my brain works, I definitely think that those are really good. And then like some easy like systems that I have set up is like through my website, like you can set up automatic email funnels and things like that, which is super convenient and nice. Emails like templates. I have templates in there. I even have templates in Instagram. I don't know if you guys know that you can do that, but you can make templates in Instagram. So there's like so many just like easy little shifts that we can make that make everything 100 times easier once you get it into place.
Absolutely. And it might take a little bit of time up front, to create different templates, or if you decide to like buy them or whatever, but like, it's going to take a little bit of time to implement it, but then you're going to save so much time, and it's going to be automated. It's going to, you mentioned the emails. So if you have like an email funnel set up, or you batch out all your emails one day a month and have them go out, like that's all done. You don't have to think about it throughout the month. You don't have to think about it every single time you sign a client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes it so much nicer. And I also think it's important to say those systems that you put in place for yourself then make it easier when you bring other people onto your team too, because you already have systems in place that like allow you to maintain like the level of service and things that you had before, but now you're not the one hands-on doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really where like SOP creation comes in. So you mentioned like having those systems. Your SOPs are your standard operating procedures. So if you have it all written out and you know exactly what you're doing and how you like things done, when you bring on that team member, you can just hand that off. You can say, look, this is, I mean, still kind of keep an eye. It's the first time you have a team member, but you can easily, exactly what you like to have done. And so there doesn't have to be as much conversation. They don't have to say, oh, like, how do you do this? And you have to like tell them, well, then what if this happens? And you have to tell them, like, you have
No need
those
for
systems already set in place. Yeah, exactly.
Which again, like all of this stuff, as we were talking about it, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's going to be more work as you're getting all of this put into place. You're obviously going to have more work as you're working on getting your KPIs in place. And like, it's all going to be a lot of work up front, but then on the back end, it's going to make everything so much easier, simpler, automated, all of those things.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's like the saying, you're not going to your business isn't going to grow overnight, right? Like you have to put in a little bit of work, and a lot of people make it seem like that just happens. And it's so easy to just go from 5K to 30K months and make that big jump, but it's really going to take a little bit of effort. And it doesn't mean you have to hustle and like go at it and spend those 8-hour days. You don't have to be working every single second, but have a realistic goal and work towards it a little bit more every day. Take some time every day, whether that's you have a CEO day and you spend that whole time working towards whatever system you want to set up, or take 30 minutes to an hour every day and kind of just like do a little bit of something to move yourself forward.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great. So as you shifted more into this coaching where you're helping like business owners scale, what are some of the like frequently asked questions that you always get about how to do that?
So I think one of them,
join if you need.
I'm trying to keep him distracted, but we'll see.
We're all moms, we get it.
One of the ones that I hear a lot is that, dealing with the team members. So like I don't want to have to give up control. I am I like how I do things. I'm the only one who can do them as well as, I can. So I'm not quite sure if I'm ready for that. And that's like a big one. And once again, it's like a mindset thing. It's recognizing that, yes, you can do all this stuff. You have been doing all this stuff and you're doing a great job at it, but your time is worth a lot more, especially when you get into those like higher ticket offers or like those higher paying months. Your time is extremely, extremely valuable. And then working like, well, you're only working a couple hours a day and then you have kids that you're taking care of. Like those tasks, things like scheduling posts or writing emails or running ad campaigns, you can have a part in it. You can, help with that process, but putting that on someone else is going to take so much off of your plate and it's going to allow you to spend more time on other people. So like, yes, there's a cost associated with hiring a VA. There's going to be a bit of mindset work to let go of things to hand off to a VA. But once you do that, your schedule frees up and adds in so much more space for those paying clients.
Yeah. I think that's super important to acknowledge. It's like we need to acknowledge our own work in all of that. Like that is the hardest and the biggest mindset leap there is like acknowledging your worth and you are the CEO. Like not everybody gets your time and attention and that's okay. Like that is how it's supposed to be. You are supposed to be on that level. And it's especially hard as women, I think, because we're so heart led. Like we want to be able to like physically touch every piece and every person that's involved in the business. And sometimes that's just not possible. And we need to kind of let go of that control, like you were saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So any final tips, tricks, tools, anything like that that you think is really important to a woman that's already has an established business, but has either reached burnout or had to step back from their business because of burnout, but that now they're ready to like take it to that next level?
Yeah, I would say my best piece of advice would be to recognize that you should be in charge of your business. Like you should run your business. It should not run you. So if you're in a space where you're feeling like the business is overwhelming, the business is your, first thought in the morning when you wake up and the last thought when you go to bed, that's a sign that it's running you. So shifting into that, like we talked about, the CEO mindset. You run your business. You are in charge of what you do in that business. You're in charge of who you serve, of how you serve, of what platforms you're on, all those things. That will, it's freeing. It's freeing to like realize that you get to make this whatever you want to. And so take that and take charge of yourself and your business.
Yeah. I think that's super important. The way that you phrase that too. It's like we get to choose what our business looks like for us in the way that works for us. Because I think especially if we've been in like a traditional 9 to 5, 8 to 5 kind of routine, we can feel stuck in that. And we don't realize, hey, we're our own boss. Like I can work at midnight if I want to, or I can work from the beach if I want to. Like we have so much freedom, and I think we forget that sometimes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's easy to fall back into, I mean, it's how we're ingrained. It's how we've learned to work is to have those 9 to 5 mindsets. So yeah, definitely stepping out of that is key.
Yeah. Well, releasing some of those old ideas and thoughts and pressures and shame and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this, Sierra. I think this was super beneficial. I think, as women entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, it's easy to forget the business part of the business. So I think this was a really good way to like kind of introduce people to these topics and terms and really give them a, kind of quick overview. But if they want to go deeper into this stuff, they want to work with you, where do we find you? What do you have going on? All of the things.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram Monday through Friday at Sierra.Scacco, and I would love to chat with you there. I also have a free training in my bio that kind of goes into these things that we talked about a little bit deeper. So more than welcome to go check that out.
Awesome. We'll definitely have to throw that into our email newsletter then, and we'll throw it into the information below the podcast too, so that you guys can find her and check it out.
Hey guys, thanks for coming to this week's episode of The Confident Mompreneur. If you loved today's episode, let us know, share to your stories and tag us, send to your friends, give us a rating, all of the things, and make sure to check out our guests and follow them on all of the links that we listed above. If you're looking for me, you can always find me at The Confident Mompreneur, and you can also check it out www.theconfidentpost.com for a blog relating to today's episode. I am so happy you're here, and I hope to see you again next week.